Hello, this is Martin Gore from Depeche Mode.
Hi, this is Dave Gahan from Depeche Mode, and you are listening to
Depeche Mode, the podcast, and I'm your host, Jon Justice. Thank you so much for checking out another episode. Remember, if you're enjoying this on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening to this via podcast, make sure you subscribe to whatever podcast platform you happen to be enjoying the show on. And as always, you can email me, TalkShowNerd@gmail.com, TalkShowNerd@gmail.com. So got a couple of items to share with you this week. First off, a rumor that came out earlier this week in the wake of Dave Gahan's performance, the tribute to Mark Lanegan. Let's go ahead and kick off the show with this bit of news/rumors. So on X, it had been posted that an album of, posthumously, Mark Lanegan and Dave Gahan, a collaboration, was pending. Titled Lost and Found, the album is allegedly a meeting of two musical worlds bridging together Lanegan's brooding rock sensibilities with Gahan's electronic and synth-driven atmospheres. Now, this came out earlier this week, and there was a photograph of Dave Gahan and Mark Lanegan together. And as I mentioned before, you can find the performances. Many people had shot videos of the Mark Lanegan tribute concert that took place back on the 5th? I got my date wrong last week. I said it was the 12th. It was actually last week. It was the day of that I recorded last week's podcast. I watched some of it. I am unfamiliar with Screaming Trees and Mark Lanegan, and because of that, I watched a bit just to see Dave Gahan, but wasn't all that interested in the music in and of itself. But it seems like people that were familiar and are familiar with Mark Lanegan's work did quite enjoy Dave's performance. This particular information about this potential album, I guess the post had been deleted, so there's a question mark of whether they didn't want the information out yet or it was erroneous. I tend to lean into, based off of what I've read online, that there is some sort of collaboration that occurred between Dave Gahan and Mark Lanegan, and it'll come to light. The extent of which I'm not sure. If it's a full-fledged album or if it's just a handful of songs that the two of them worked on together. I'd be interested to hear. I think a collaboration of Dave with a single individual could reveal or could create some pretty interesting tracks. As I've mentioned on the show, I'm not the biggest fan of Martin or Dave's solo work. I feel like those individuals are strongest in their musical efforts when it is under the banner of Depeche Mode and they're working together. That being said, I'm always open to checking out and listening to whatever Dave or Martin is creating and who they are collaborating with. So, the only news this week, still no talk about those 4 unreleased Memento Mori tracks. I do want to talk a little bit, though, about the potential of the live release for the Memento Mori tour. I was going through the thread dedicated to the Memento Mori tour on the Depeche-Mode webpage, the home forum there. And people were discussing whether or not we would get that physical release, for what it's worth, of Memento Mori. And somebody had made mention, and I think a lot of this was because of COVID, that we didn't get the Spirits in the Forest Anton Corbijn movie and the live release for Spirit until 2 or 3 years after that tour ended. Now, I tend to think that's because Anton Corbijn was shooting the footage had shot the footage relating to that, but was also piecing that film together, and it took some time. And, of course, you had COVID there in the mix that kind of would have slowed the process down. So, that is to say that the tour has only ended 5 months ago. So, I would have expected, and I think you would have expected, because we have received physical releases of the tour fairly close to the end of the tour before, but given that things slowed down a bit, and the band has been pretty consistent in releasing the vinyl singles packages, that perhaps they're waiting and having some time go by before they go and release that Memento Mori tour physical release. I would be shocked if they didn't. I've talked about it before. I'm not going to go over that ground again, except to say that it was such an incredible tour and an album that was met with such success and praise. And the fact that we do know that shows were filmed, especially that show in Mexico, but there were other shows that had cameras there. I still expect there will be a physical release. Surprised that we haven't gotten any information. And it's one of those things that I wish that the NME would have gone and asked when they conducted the interview for the Mark Lanegan tribute in the podcast that I did and the show that I did last week, when Dave made mention that he talked to Martin about writing, and Martin said he wasn't writing, and that Dave said he wouldn't, he wouldn't put off them getting together at some point, but right now nothing was in the cards. I wish that the NME had asked them, hey, like they had been a real true Depeche Mode fan to go, we know that there's 4 unreleased tracks. Do we know what's happening with those? We know that the tour was successful. Will there be a live, DVD, Blu-ray release? I can't imagine that Martin or Dave would be reluctant to go and release that information. I think it really just is a matter of nobody has asked either of them. So if anybody knows them and has the opportunity or knows somebody in the label, I think we could probably get an answer pretty quickly if somebody would go and ask. Unfortunately, at a time when somebody actually went and interviewed Dave, they didn't bother to go and ask him that question, which, again, I just find incredibly frustrating. All right, let's get to your emails this week. That's all for the content. It's going to be a relatively shorter show this week, and I have some show news to share when we get to the end of this week's show. First, friend of the show, Jeff, texted me this time. Says, enjoying this week's podcast right now. I'm one of those oddballs that preferred Spirit to Memento Mori. You Move is one of my top favorite tracks ever. Have you ever listened to it on a system with a strong subwoofer and it really loud? Jeff, I haven't. I like You Move. My biggest issue with You Move is the keyboard breakdown where the notes get erratic. It just throws me off every time. I know it's in tune. I know it's timed correctly. But that bing, ba-bing, da-ding, da-ding, the rhythm doesn't flow for me, and every single time I listen to that song, because I do enjoy the lyrics of that song, I like the vibe, the tempo, and the groove, but that keyboard breakdown just really throws me off every single time, and it's probably one of my biggest hang-ups when it comes to Spirit, is that it just has these quirky moments that don't quite work for me. Same thing with Scum as well. There's just these moments in the song where the musical arrangements are just off-putting. And I typically don't find that ever in Depeche Mode songs, even songs that I don't particularly care for. It's not because of the musical arrangement. Most of the time it comes down to Dave's singing style or the way that he decided to do certain notes. I guess that is Dave's singing style. But with Spirit, there's just some arrangement choices that they made that make it less enjoyable for me. Jeff goes on to say, it has one of the You Move strongest grooves of earth-shaking bass. Reminds me of in the vein of Happiest Girl, Sea of Soy, or My Joy. A Sea of Sin, or My Joy. More of a modern vibe. Always shocked so few fans like that one. On the 4 missing tracks, it's almost predictable that they will be part of the next vinyl set release when they catch up to Memento Mori in the series of releases that they've been doing. Interesting. I hope that's the case. I'd like to believe, and at least I'm telling myself, that those songs are so strong that they are holding off to put them out on a very special release, and maybe that'll be the case. All right, let's see. Davey and Pamveridge write, I wouldn't be surprised to hear Dave and Martin having a meeting in early spring. Oh, that's interesting. I could see that. By the way, I took some really bizarre flack on last week's show. It was very weird. Typically, I don't get criticism on the show, and I'm fine with it, whatever. To each their own. Not everybody can like everything. But I had some people that were coming into the comments and making runs at me. It was very, very weird. over really odd things like the comments that Dave made, like I was making up what Dave said. Like it wasn't news. That was newsworthy what he said. I mean, he was talking about the future of the band. I don't know. It was just odd. Typically, I don't get that. And last week I did. Who knows? Who knows? All right, let's go to Chris. Chris writes, a friend of mine who is a metal fan asked me to create a best of DM to expose him to the band. He was aware of DM based on cover songs by In Flames, Deftones, and Ghost. Although I struggled to comprise my DM top 20, all of it originated from 81 to 93. I love Ultra and a couple of random tracks from 2001 to the present, but my true passion for the band is Songs of Faith and Devotion and Prior, which I think most fans can relate to. My biggest fear is that DM has become some sort of nostalgic classic band like Journey or Def Leppard, obligated to play their hits live every night. I would not be heartbroken to dump Everything Counts, Stripped, Personal Jesus, etc. eternally from the set list. Thank you, JJ. Chris, you know, it's interesting. I have a complete view. I've always felt that Depeche Mode didn't succumb to that trope, like a Journey. I call him Journey with the other guy because Steve Perry's not in the band anymore. Def Leppard and alike. I feel like Depeche Mode has been more successful than other bands who have consistently gone and put out music and toured, specifically Pet Shop Boys and Duran Duran. There are certainly bands out there that go out and tour and simply ride the wave of nostalgia. I never felt that Depeche Mode did that. I get what you're saying about the set list. I, too, wish that they would vary the set list a bit, but I also understand, especially with their getting up in age, very set in their ways of how many songs they're going to do per show, and the desire to make sure that they do play the hits for those fans that are coming for nostalgic reasons and aren't the hardcore fans like you and I are. But I've never felt that they've sort of landed in that they're only touring for nostalgia's sake, especially given just how extensive their shows are. Their shows are just so complex, so well done, and really do cater to that album that they are releasing. I felt like they've maintained a fantastic level of consistency on that front. And again, thank you for the email. Let's see. Karen Drennan writes, I listened to the whole album, Memento Mori, again on my journey through central London recently and enjoyed songs like Wagging Tongue more so than my first playthrough when it was initially released. Maybe that's familiarity or experiencing the live shows, I don't know, but the album feels really strong now. The Lanegan tribute show is tonight at Roundhouse. I wish I could be there, but those tickets sold out really quickly. Thank you, Karen, for that. And again, yeah, my apologies last week. I saw the 12 and the date, and it was switched because it was doing the date like they do in Europe and not in America. And when I saw 12, it was for December and not the 12th. That's why I got it wrong. So let's see. Let's go here to Jameson Pierce, who writes, Dave seems so chill after such a huge tour. In the past, he was always in a, I don't think I can do this again frame of mind. In interviews and post-world tours, I think he finally figured out how to put on the Depeche Mode persona and stay grounded. I think many of us older fans can relate. I'm 51 and just figuring out how to balance all the demands of my life. This makes me think that they have more music and tours in them, and maybe for the first time can truly enjoy the full cycle of such a monumental undertaking. See what I did there? I did. It might look a bit different this next time out, but I'm absolutely sure there is more to come. Let's see. El Pona writes, they make millions from each album and many millions more from touring. Why wouldn't they carry on? They're not even that old, only in their 60s. Babies by Rolling Stone standards. I like your attitude. Jose, it's me, writes, Caroline's Monkey was the first song that became my favorite from Memento Mori. It has that DM electronic edge to it. Yeah, I do. I really do enjoy that song quite a bit. Really reminded me of The Cure on a first blush, but really do enjoyed that track. And then, let's see, lastly, friend of the show, David Theofolt, in response to Dave comments from the NME last week, 100% this is positive. I don't think Dave would even have asked Martin if he was writing if he didn't want to do something else. Yeah, I completely agree. Very weird the way that people took that, but it's all subjective. I think there's a lot of, fans out there that just want to see them continue and want Dave to say, yes, we're going to make more music. And that's just not how that works. It's never how the band has worked, quite honestly. So, listen, I'm heading on vacation. I've got one more week of my radio show to do, and then I'm off for a full 2 weeks for Christmas and New Year's. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and go on vacation from the podcast until we get into the first week of January. Barring some news that's worth coming back on and posting a show, this will probably be the last show until after the first of the year. Listen, with that, I just want to say thank you so much for the journey that I've been on with doing this podcast, having started it so many years ago, and then sort of doing it off and on, and then going and doing a weekly show. I wish that I could pour more into it, but with the full-time job and the other shows that I do, this is about as much time as I have for currently. So, again, barring some news breaking that's worth doing a show for, I hope you have a fantastic Christmas and a great New Year's. Thank you so much for taking part in the podcast. I really do appreciate it. Feel free to drop me an email, talkshownerd@gmail.com. And listen, if you want to get me a Christmas gift this year and you enjoy reading science fiction, go and check out my science fiction series, EMBARK. 7 books in all, completes the entire story as Earth faces its end. You'll follow pilots Taft, Katha, and their crew on a journey of survival across the galaxy as they fight for humanity's future. It's a fast-paced and action-packed science fiction adventure. You can pick it up on Amazon.com. Just search for EMBARK, E-M-B-A-R-K, and Jon, J-O-N, Justice. If you like Depeche Mode, which you do, and science fiction, and you like it to be epic, filled with some romance, really cool technology, and a lot of action, EMBARK is perfect for you. I wrote the stories for adults, but they're great and age-appropriate for kids 11 and up. Available in ebook, Kindle Unlimited, hardcover, paperback, and audiobook. Again, Amazon.com. Search for Jon, J-O-N, Justice, and EMBARK. Have a great holidays. I hope wherever you are, you're happy, you're healthy, and you're safe. God bless, and thank you so much for checking out the show. I really do appreciate it. I'll talk to you. If I don't talk to you next week, I'll talk to you in 2025. Have a great one. Bye.
Hello, this is Martin Gore.